Hello, my friend. Welcome to the study. Today, I thought it might be fun to go through some points of sail, and we'll start out by looking at some rigging on this little sailboat, this little toy boat from Skipper. And we'll have some nice wood sounds to go with it. We'll go over some names of parts of the boat and the rigging. And then we'll have a look at how to point your boat according to the wind. So we'll start out by looking at the hull of this boat. It's from Skipper, which is a very nice little toy boat company that makes boats that actually sail on the water. Now, it's not radio controlled, but you can have a lot of fun with it by setting your sails, and it's got a nice heavy metal keel. So if you like to sail toy boats, this might be a fun video for you. So we'll just have a look at the keel and the hull. This is a string that's been attached to the boat that I'll take off. And this is just so it doesn't sail away. That's just there. Okay. Now here we have our rigging. We've got the mast, which, as you can see, has not been cut from a great piece of wood because there's some knots in it and it's a bit bent. So we can say it's raked. Raked mast. But that's not too big a deal. What we're going to do, we want to raise the mainsail here. And we do that by pulling on the halyard. So the halyard will be connected to the top of the mast. And there it is. You can see it pulling the sail up. So I'm sorry I couldn't film the entire boat because it's a very tall mast. I've got the halyard, looks like set on the port side here. And it should be coming from the starboard. Okay. There we go. And there's our halyard, and there's our little cleat. We've got a little plastic cleat to tighten that. And there's our mainsail up. Now, the main mast, the mainsail is connected to the main mast via this little joint here on the toy boat, and this holds the boom. So this boom or yard will determine which side the sail is on, whether it's on the port side and the wind is coming over your starboard. You're on starboard tack. If the mainsail is on your right hand, your starboard side, you are on port tack because the wind is coming over the port side of the boat. Now, you notice that we've got a sail in the front of this boat. This one is called a jib. And we have a jib halyard right there. And I've drawn that through the wrong side of the sail there. So I'm going to hoist the jib with the jib halyard and use the same little cleat system we've got for the toy boats there. There you can see it's nice and tight. So we've got a jib. Now if this jib, well, you can see it's rigged from what would be the forestay, or the cable that holds the mast down and is tied to the bow of the boat. And if this sail went all the way up to the top of the mast and came back past the mast towards the stern, it would be called a genoa. But this is a nice little racing boat, and it's got a mainsail and a jib. So here you can see we've got the ropes that control the sails, and little cleats here so you can set them. Now remember, the ropes that we used to raise the sails are called the halyards. The one to raise the main sail is called the main halyard, and the one to raise the jib is called the jib halyard, or if you've got a genoa, the genoa halyard. You might notice there are some other lines here to control the sails. And those are called the sheets. So this one, connected to the main sail, is called the main sheet. And the one connected to the jib is called the jib sheet. Now we have different parts of the sail. The parts of the sail, the corner that's fixed, it doesn't really move, it's called the tack. And the part, the corner of the sail that has the leading line through it, that controls it, oops, we've got some puppy fur, it's called the clew. So we've got the sheets going through the clew on this toy boat. And that's how we're going to control our sails. So just before we get into points of sail, to give you an idea of what it looks like from this angle, because we're going to be looking at it from a bird's eye view in a little bit. If we're heading straight into the wind, the sails are going to be flapping like this, and it's going to be very, very noisy. But if we turn just a little bit, the wind's coming there off our port bow, we can pull the sails in very tight. I'll tighten the jib sheet there, and the wind will fill them up. The boat will lean a little bit so that it's perfectly balanced for going really fast through the water. Whoosh. And the wind's going to be coming over your port bow, and you're on a port tack. Now suppose the wind were coming from straight behind you, then we would be running. Now we don't have a spinnaker on this boat, although one has been rigged before with a handkerchief. What you can do, if you're very close behind the wind, and this one doesn't let out the sail quite as much, but you can have the jib on one side and the mainsail on the other. Sometimes it's called goose winging or swan, and the wind will fill that jib up there and the mainsail there, and you'll run before the wind. So there we have our little wooden sailboat with a nice little heavy metal keel, which you can hear makes a nice sound. So anytime I tap on the wood, you're hearing a little bit of that metal ding as well. And we've got our mylar sails. Alright, let's have a look at our points of sail. Alright, so get a piece of paper and we'll go through some points of sail. We use a pencil. I suppose I'll just use a good old-fashioned pencil. I'll get a ruler and we'll be using something to make a circle. Well, I'm going to go low-tech and use this cup. Do you like this cup? It's from a little children's book called Milo and the Magic Stones. And it's a story about all these mice who collect golden stones, and what they do with them. It's a very good story. So I'm going to use that to make a little circle, and we can talk about points of sail. Because we don't need to be very precise, you can see it's not a great circle, but it will do for our purposes. Now we're going to say that the wind is coming from this direction. And the circle is just for some reference. Now if the wind is coming from that direction, I'm going to try to bisect this circle exactly in half. And again, 90 degrees. Very similar to the compass points, and I've done that a little bit wrong there. Let's fix that. That looks better. Now we'll get I'm going to fix that. Okay. That's about all we need the ruler for. if we have our boat here, our sails are flapping. We say they're in irons, and that is straight into the wind. And there is a certain angle of zones that can be different sizes depending on the boat. Racing boats will be able to point farther into the wind, whereas if you have a large cruising boat or a cruising yacht, you're probably not going to be able to point into the wind very far. A good rule is when you're on the boat, you can make two fists like this, put your thumbs together, and extend your index fingers. And that will give you what we call the no-go zone. So if your boat is pointed that way, that's probably as far into the wind as you can go before you start being in irons. Your sails start flapping and you don't make any headway. Now if we're going to sail very close to the wind, we will be almost on that no-go line. Now remember, our right-hand side is starboard, and our left-hand side is port. Right? So we can sail very close on the wind, and our sails will be pulled in just about as tight as they can go. And that will be sailing close hauled. Close haul, to haul in your sails. If we wanted to go a little bit farther of an angle, we can let the sails out almost just over the gunwale or the side of the boat. And there we're going probably one of the best tacks to be on. And there's our helicopter outside. He loves it when I film. So this point of sail is called a close reach. So the sail's just reaching over the side of the boat. And over here, you can draw these boats, we're going to be about 90 degrees from the wind. So our sails are going to be out quite a bit. And that will be called a beam reach. Because they're almost on the beam of the boat. Right? The beam of the boat is there. So a beam reach. Now, remember we were talking about what tack you're on, which side of the boat the wind is coming from. So even though this is the starboard side of the boat when we're facing this direction, and this is the port side, if the wind is coming over that starboard side, you are on starboard tack. If the wind is coming over your port side, you are on port tack. Or you can remember it as on the tack that is opposite the sides that your sails are on. Your sails are on the starboard side of the boat or the mast. You are on port tack. Your sails are on the port side. You are on starboard tack. Now, that's going to change because the boat is now turning. So just like we have a bit of a no-go zone here, especially if you're racing, because when you point into the wind, you lose speed and the boat stops. There's also a no-go zone, or a bit of a danger zone, downwind, depending on what kind of boat you're sailing and how well you handle it and how good the rigging is. You probably don't want to go on a dead run. Now here you can have the sails at different sides of the boat. Oops, look at my spelling. It's a good thing that was at the very bottom of the picture. Dead run. So directly downwind. And the risk with that is if the wind shifts just a little bit or the boat trim changes just a tiny bit, you can accidentally jibe, which means the stern of the boat, the back, will go across the wind and the mainsail will flip to the other side. It's very hard on the rigging and can be very hard on the crew if they get hit by the boom as the mast, as the sail changes position. So it's a very tricky point of sail, and sometimes there are other considerations depending on the boat, but the bow can easily go under the water and then the boat will flip forward and do a cartwheel. So you have to be very careful going that fast. What we do, though, is go as close downwind as we can. And you can have your sails all the way out on the same side of the boat. And this is called running. So there you can see from this direction, you will not turn the bow of the boat through the wind to change direction. You'll be turning the stern through the wind. So that is called a jibe. And when you're going upwind, it is called a tack, to turn the boat. Now, coming back around a little bit, so we don't want to run, but we do want to make the most of our downwind leg. Our sails are extended, still quite a bit, but they're reaching much farther than a beam reach. This is called a broad reach, because the sails are pretty far out. You want to make them nice and round as well, so they make big pockets. So they're going to look like big pillows, catching air like a parachute as the wind's coming this way. Now, if the wind is coming over your starboard side, you are now on starboard tack, and the wind here coming over your port side, you're on port tack. When you're running, And there goes our helicopter. I'll wait a little bit for him to go past. If you're running and you decide to goose wing your boat, the tack that you are on is going to be determined by which side your main sail is on, not the jib. And those are our points of sail. So, what we've now gone over are the parts of the boat. So we've got a keel, which is usually very heavy, keeps the boat from turning over, keeps it from straying off its course. We talked about a main mast and the forestay that holds the jib. So there's our jib. If we have another sail attached to the forestay that comes back past the mast and extends all the way up to the top or almost to the top, that will be called your Genoa or Jenny. We also saw the mainsail, and we talked about the boom, which holds the foot of the mainsail. We talked about the clew that holds the sheet, and remember these sheets control how far in or out the sails are. We talked about the tack, which holds the bottom of the sail fixed either to the forestay or to the mast. We talked about the bow, the front of the boat, and the stern. So now we've gone through some boat parts and some points of sail and wind direction. And you can see if we have a compass, and I'm going to try to make that align. It's going to align south because that's where I'm facing at the moment. An interesting point is your northwest and northeast are about on your close haul points. Also your southeast and northwest on your broad reach points, close to running. So you can also use a compass to determine how far into the wind you can sail, how close on the wind you can sail. And you might remember in another video we were talking about lights. Let's have a look at lights. Night sailing. You will have a tricolor light on your masthead, divided, as the name suggests, into three. So your starboard side will be green, and your port side will be red. I think I've got some colors for that. So there's our port side light and our starboard side light, and your stern light. If you have another light back here, it will be showing there and there, and it will be white. So the green goes along with my drawing the center of the boat there, and that's at 112.5 degrees, and the port side is 112.5 degrees, which makes the stern light 135 degrees of this circle. So if you're a boat over here coming this way, say your little speedboat or something, you should be able to see green from the very front to 112 degrees. And this roughly coincides with the points of the compass. So if you have, I'm trying to put it at north, but we are pointed south a bit. So it's actually opposite, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so you can see that your southeast and southwest coincides with the 135 degrees. So you can actually use a compass for quite a lot of references when you're sailing. And there you have our points of sail and a few parts of the boat. So I hope you've enjoyed this little video, and that you found it a little bit relaxing and enjoy the wood sounds. And if you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them below. Please like and subscribe, and tell me about your sailing, if you sail, or if you'd like to sail. But most of all, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and above all, and as always, be extraordinary.